Well, welcome everyone who has joined us today for our Mental Health Matters virtual learning series. So excited today to have you with us and just to have the opportunity to do our first virtual learning series and of the Mental Health Informed Parent. We have been able to offer this session several times in face-to-face formats. But today is our first time to do a live virtual session. So, welcome, and we are so glad you're here. I guess I should start off and introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Allen, and I am the Mental Health Services Coordinator for Madison City School District. And we are here today as a part of our Mental Health Matters initiative. This is an initiative we started in our school system about 3 years ago in partnership with the Madison City Council of PTA, and has been just an amazing partnership to join together parents and school system and try to do what we can to support the growing needs of mental health in our students, but not just our students in the schools, for our families and parents. So, if you're joining us today and you are a parent, maybe you are a family member or a guardian, a grandparent, maybe you work with youth, or you are a part of the school system. Whatever brings you here today, we are certainly glad to have you. And I think you're going to learn a lot of great things about how to support the mental health of youth, what to look for, and some action steps and what to do. So we hope today that you walk away with some valuable tools and information. Um, Before I introduce our presenters and hand it off to them, I just want to tell you a couple of housekeeping things. We're going to be completely finished and wrapped up by 1 o'clock today. We will also have an opportunity for you at the end of the learning session to complete a online exit survey. We'll have a QR code posted on the screen at the very end for you to use it to link to a survey to give us questions, feedback, and help us as we plan for hopefully more virtual sessions just like this. And we can do those on different topics. We want your input. So please take the time to fill that out. It'll also be sent in an email if you don't get a chance to scan the QR code at the end of the session today. So I just wanted to give you the information that you'll have the opportunity for that as well, and who to contact if you have any questions following our session today. So I'm so excited to have with us just a great, outstanding partnership we have with an organization called the Enrichment Center. And the Enrichment Center provides school-based mental health services in Madison City Schools. Our presenters today both work with the Enrichment Center, and they're both placed in Madison City Schools. We have Miss Katie Holder, who's the clinical director of the Enrichment Center, and she also has been a school-based therapist and continues to do that role as well. And we have Dr. Brittany Blankenship, who has been a school-based therapist and is currently serving in the role as a mental health coach in our Madison City School District, where she's going into classrooms and also meeting with students, and just two amazing people with great experience. We have so much knowledge and expertise regarding youth mental health. And so we're really excited to have them here and have them presenting today. So without any more of me talking, I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Dr. B. You guys take it away and share all your goodness with us today.
Hello, like Stephanie said, I'm Katie Holder, and thank you, Stephanie, for that introduction. So today we will be, like she said, talking about the mental health informed parent. We also like to present it as the mental health informed home because we know that can look different for different families. But first, we want to tell y'all more about us. So the Enrichment Center, we are a nonprofit organization that provides professional school-based mental health therapy in the schools. Our purpose is partnering with schools to meet the mental health needs of our community's children. And our mission is to passionately walk with students through seasons of mental health struggle and equip students with the tools, support, and confidence to create a brighter future. So we are very thankful for the opportunity to work with our different school district partners. And our sessions take place in the school setting where the kids are. It's during the school day and it's at no cost to the students or their families. So we love that it really tackles all of those barriers for youth mental health that you see, the main ones that you see when seeking help. And we love working with our schools. So today's presentation is a general outline of what Brittany and I will be covering. We're going to look at the difference between good mental health and poor mental health, typical behaviors that you see with children and teens compared to signs that maybe there are more going on with their mental health, deeper issues, what caregivers can do to support the good mental health at home, how caregivers can support if they find that mental health issues are coming up with their kids, and then steps for getting that extra help. Okay, so these are statistics. There's lots and lots of statistics and studies done specifically on youth mental health. These are the ones we like to highlight, and we feel like they focus on the population we work with and really give a good idea of what mental health looks like with children right now. So 1 in 5 youth in the US will experience a mental health disorder. This is a diagnosable more intensive situation. So not just that their mental health is struggling in the ways that we all do, but this is an actual disorder diagnosis. Fewer than half of young people experience depression. Half of them will not receive treatment. Half of all mental health disorders begin by age 14, and most of the rest by 24. So this is where we're very passionate about that early intervention, and the earlier you can get them help and resources and even into therapy, the long-term effects of that are very positive. Half of all parents are unaware that their adolescent has suicidal ideation. And then our favorite one to highlight is that youth are 6 times more likely to complete mental health treatment in schools rather than in the community setting. So that's what we provide. We know there are many organizations across the state that provide that, and we're very passionate about being able to give them quality mental health services in their school setting. Okay, so this graph shows the relationship between good mental health and mental illness. The main reason we like to point this out is to show that just because someone has a diagnosis of a mental illness, ADHD, anxiety, depression, or any of them, does not necessarily mean that their mental health is going to be poor. So if you have a student who, let's say they have a diagnosis of ADHD, but they're in treatment, they're maybe taking medication, they're using those coping skills, they can have a mental illness and have good mental health. Whereas you might have a student, they don't have any diagnosis. And it's not that they're just undiagnosed, they just don't meet any of them, but they don't have very good coping skills. Maybe they've gone through a major change in their life. They can suffer from poor mental health without one. So just because someone has a mental illness or a diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean one or the other. Okay, so this is what is good mental health. So these are the things that we're looking for. I know a lot of times when we're looking at mental health, we're focusing on what we're trying to avoid, but these are the things that we're striving for. So we're looking for a sense of contentment. Are they able to identify good things in their life, what they're thankful for? The ability to cope with the stresses of daily life. So again, looking at if they've gone through something really intense or traumatic, then they might not be coping well, and that is to be expected. But if it's just day-to-day life, we want to be able to cope with that well. The ability to work productively and meet reasonable goals. So similar to daily life, we're looking at goals that are achievable. If someone's able to meet those goals pretty regularly most days. Positive self-talk, are they able to tell themselves, I didn't do that well yet, but I'm going to work on it. I know how to get help for this. I know that if I keep practicing, I'll get better. So not necessarily the I'm the best person talk, but that ability to see where they can grow or where they can get help. The ability to build and maintain relationships. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to have 10 friends or that they're always making new friends, but do they have close friends and are they able to keep them? Are they able to give to those relationships and receive from them? A sense of self-worth, similar to self-talk, and contentment really is, are they able to see their talents, their abilities, their strengths, even when things aren't going well, can they identify those? And then the last one is taking care of their physical health. So especially when we're talking about little kids, this is more dependent on parents, but when you're looking at middle school and high school, really paying attention to their dress and their daily habits of sleep and eating. Are they able to take care of themselves? Are they able to identify when they are having healthy habits, or are they prioritizing that?
Good afternoon, everyone. Keeping in line with um, Katie, as she talked about good mental health, important mental health, and the difference of that, it's going to be important for how we support our students at home with good mental health. And so, in a nutshell, you'll see that healthy and safe communities are strongly encouraged, as well as intentional self-care, encouraging the intentional self-care. So connecting with adults, caregivers, in-person interactions with friends and family, making sure to keep in line with intentional self-care, exercising, healthy choices of food, hobbies, fresh air, getting outside, getting active. Those things are all useful for supporting good mental health, making sure, even as Katie mentioned, that students are encouraged to achieve goals and that they have the support they need in order to accomplish those goals so that they can become successful and well-rounded individuals. Okay, so poor mental health. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And so, again, it is really, really important that we understand that poor mental health doesn't mean mental illness. It is the action of how we manage stress and how we manage the day-to-day challenges that we face. And we all face challenges and hardships that impact our lives. And so as we face those challenges, it is important that we understand how those things interfere with our day-to-day life. And it's when those interferences don't go well and we don't recover, and they're more long lasting. And so there are several things that can affect our heart and our mind. And so we'll talk more about this. Things that can negatively impact your child's mental health at home could be the death of a family member or even a pet. And that family member doesn't necessarily have to live in the home, but it could even be a really close neighbor or a family friend. Those deaths can impact and affect a child's mental health. Parental conflict. So if there's different things that are going on with the caregivers within the home, domestic violence, abuse, separations and divorce, those things also affect a child's mental health. A couple of things I want to point out here. We don't see this often for parents talking about, but we have a lot of conversations with students and we hear about students being bullied at home by siblings. And so there is a difference between bullying and just kind of playing around and teasing. And so if a child is being bullied by a sibling and picked on by siblings in a detrimental way, that could be very detrimental and negative to a child's mental health, as well as the neglect of their needs, not only their physical needs, as we've kind of talked about, making sure they're getting proper nutrition and exercising. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs is something that we focus on, and it's just a model of meeting human needs, and that goes beyond those basic needs. So there are psychological needs, children needing to feel love and intimacy and belonging, and to help develop their self-esteem, as well as self-fulfilling needs. And so making sure that all of the needs, in addition to those basic needs, are being met. Any homelessness or displacement, or even the mental and emotional instability of a parent, could be those things that could negatively impact a child's mental health at home.
Okay, so now Brittany and I are going to take turns looking at what's typical for each age group and then what might be an indicator of deeper issues. Again, like Brittany said, you're looking for patterns. You're looking for things that impact their daily life, that keep them from doing the things they enjoy, or just really, again, if you see these things once or twice every once in a while, it's not necessarily something to be as concerned about, but you're looking for those things that persist, or that are drastic changes. So what's typical for elementary age kids? These are, again, a very short list. There's an exhaustive list we could create, but these are the main things we see working with the age groups we work with. So the desire for more freedom than they can handle. This is very common within this age group. They can sound very confident in their ability to do something and just not be able to do it. Or they can just take it on without letting you know because they think they can. Then they get very overwhelmed and come to you. Difficulty dealing with uncomfortable emotions. So this again is very common from kindergarten all the way to 5th or 6th grade, especially those younger ages. Sometimes we have people, parents will ask, like, my child gets really stuck on these things and they can't get past it and they get very emotional. And I would say in general, those are very typical behaviors of that age. They have a difficult time identifying how they feel in the first place. So then it can also be hard for them to manage it. Asking questions about different behaviors, cultures, and lifestyles. A lot of times these questions can also be what we as adults consider taboo from time to time. Everything's new. They're being exposed to things when they're with friends, when they're at school, when they're with you that are new to them. So they're going to ask a lot of questions. Exploring a range of interests, and they may appear random. So they can be totally into and love one thing one week and maybe switch and say they don't like that anymore. Why did you think I love that? And pick something else the next week. That's very normal, very typical. A lot of times can stem from their peers' interests, but it can just fully come internally from themselves. And then trying out different words, phrases, and expressions. I'm sure we all can think of times that we've heard children try out words that didn't even make sense the way that they use them. But kids will try the things that they hear, sometimes in inappropriate ways, that as our standard. So that is very normal, very typical of this age group. So when should we be concerned? These are, again, can be longer lists, but these are the main things that we see or would look for. First would be sleep disturbances. So if the child is having a difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or if they're having nightmares. We first look at their device use. Are they using devices really close to bedtime? If so, that can be a pretty simple answer. Otherwise, there might be something else going on. Frequent physical complaints, an example would be stomach aches. A lot of children in this age group, if they struggle with anxiety, but lots of other diagnoses, can experience a lot of physical symptoms. And it's not uncommon for them to not recognize their emotional distress and only notice the physical symptoms. Developmental delays and regression. So you can have children if they start randomly wetting the bed again after they had fully stopped doing that. You might have kids act like they can't walk, they get all stiff, or they want the stuffed animal that they stopped having in their bed a few years ago. Anything where it feels like they're behaving the way they did a year, 2 years ago. This a lot of times can indicate something deeper, not necessarily with any of these super severe or serious, but something that you might want to discuss with the doctor or a mental health professional. If they appear withdrawn, have a loss of interest in things that they enjoy, increased avoidance. So children, especially in this age group, as we know, tend to be more happy-go-lucky. They tend to have a heightened mood compared to the rest of our life. That's usually where we sit in this age group, unless we're very tired or hungry. So when you notice that they have a loss of interest or they're not easy to kind of get distracted or get excited about something, then that could indicate that something is going on, especially, again, if that's not their typical demeanor. Increased irritability or drastic changes in mood. And then if behaviors become more defiant or aggressive, I know this is, I would say typically one we recognize, all people recognize that something's going on with these behaviors. But definitely don't want to leave it out, but the others are also great indicators that something deeper might be going on.
Okay, so things that are typical for teens, and this is kind of leaning more so towards the later middle school, high school. And so during this stage of adolescent development, children are sorting through identity versus role confusion. So they're sorting through spending more time with their friends. They want to be connected, they want to be involved, they want to explore new ideas, they want to explore different ways of expressing themselves, what they like, what they don't like. And a lot of that is influenced by their peers, by their community, because again, they are trying to understand their identity and where they fit at in society. This is a very pivotal stage because they're changing their interests, they're changing their hobbies. And so maybe a student had been playing t-ball or some sport or piano since they could, and they're changing their ideas, they're changing what they're interested in their hobbies. We see frequent mood swings, highs and lows, for no apparent reason sometimes. But during this age, we see students just having mood swings with a lot of their focus. A lot of the focus is on people in a romantic way. And so they start to express curiosity with romantic interest. There's a curiosity for sexuality and intimacy. There's a curiosity to even test and begin to test those boundaries, and begin to break rules. And so you may notice that teens and adolescents in this age are maybe pushing the rules a little bit. Maybe you've given them, students, a curfew of 10 o'clock to come in on the weekends, but they may try to come in maybe 10:15 first. And then you start to notice that, hey, it's 10:30, 10:45. And so they're trying to, explore and test boundaries during this age, as well as not wanting to share as much with caregivers. And so we know how challenging this could be, but it's very typical at this age that they're wanting to branch off a little bit from home, what they've known, because they've developed trust and sorted through trust and mistrust at the earlier childhood age and the school age, but now as they're adolescents, they're wanting to get more connected with their surroundings and society, to see where they fit and where they belong and how they want to identify. Okay, so when should we be concerned? When does the behaviors become a little bit more concerning? We want to focus in on forming a habit of using drugs. So being mindful when they're exploring and trying out different things that are substances. Like, we are cool with expressing ourselves by way of clothing, but when things turn into a habit of drug use and alcohol use, that is more alarming. Risky sexual behaviors, where maybe for high schoolers, not just being a little more risky in sexual behaviors, restricting binge eating or purging of food.
Pointing me to those
Again,
letters?
there is a for me, should I keep going? Okay, I'll keep going. So where they're focusing on, because again, they're looking at their appearance, where they fit, they're getting a lot of ideas from peers and wanting to fit in. And so when you start to have behaviors like running away from home or refusing to go to school, like defiant behaviors, that are just outside of the ordinary, temper tantrums and outbursts and things of that behavior that becomes very violent, then we want to be concerned then, feeling sad or irritable for most of the day. So if those mood swings aren't swinging as much, meaning that they typically stay in a sad or irritable place a little longer, those things may be some grounds for concern. Suicidal ideation, as well as thoughts and actions of and activities of self-harm, those things are a little more concerning. And so we'll move to the next slide. Okay, so what can caregivers do to support good mental health in our adolescents? And so supporting good mental health, next slide. Okay, so ways that we can support as caregivers would be to support a healthy brain in 4 different ways we're going to talk through. The first way in doing that, as we mentioned before, is engaging in encouraging self-awareness, encouraging mindfulness, and encouraging the child to be present with their emotions, helping them to sort through how they're feeling, letting children know that there's no good or bad emotion, but helping them to develop a healthy way of recognizing and communicating even those uncomfortable emotions, such as sadness or frustration or disappointment, because those things help for students to just develop that good mental health, good ways of coping with stressors in life. And so helping students, even if that means to use a feelings chart, we have a resource that we'll talk about later, but resources to help students communicating those feeling words. We really encourage engaging relationally, supportive and safe relationships to provide protection before things get difficult, before things begin to be more concerning. So we encourage the engagement of relational health, and that enjoying one another, spending time with children before things get a little bit more challenging. So that way that trust that we talked about earlier, that trust is being developed there, that concern is, and that love and attention is given to students. And so we do encourage listening actively, nodding, leaning in to just develop ways of communicating without judgment. And sometimes even providing solutions, sometimes helping students or your children to reach a resolve helping them and navigating them to reach a resolve that is beneficial and healthy for them will just take some time, but we want to encourage and empower students to have critical thinking skills and to implement those things. Okay, the last two we'll talk about is participating in group activities. Doing that together with your child is beneficial. Doing that together at home when your child is reactive or having a hard day, or you see maybe it's a teen who seems to a bit stressful and they're in band, they're participating in extracurricular activities, and they have classes that are stressful and very demanding homework assignments. It is important, and we encourage that you as caregivers engage in physical activity with your child, because it helps to build that bond there again, but also encouraging them to be physically active so they can shift their emotional state. And sometimes it's pushing away from the regular routines of life. So maybe your child comes in and you ask your child about a TikTok dance. We like to encourage caregivers and parents to get engaged with the child. Does it have to be, because sometimes it can be challenging for those high schoolers because they like, okay, we don't really want to do all of that. And so encouraging them to get in a space where they're able to actively engage is very helpful for our bodies, our mind, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Katie will talk more about that in just a second. But the bonus to this interaction and soft touches, hugs, and holding hands and snuggling even with your little ones, the importance of doing that is that it allows you both to experience a release of estrogen or oxytocin that helps to support emotional bonding between you and your child. So it's beneficial for both you and your child.
Okay, so now we're going to look at a few specific practical ways that you can do these things that Brittany was talking about with kids, whether they're small or older. You can change them a little bit to fit the different age groups. So first, we're going to look at connect first, then redirect, especially looking at the really little kids up until through middle school, maybe early high school. Their brains are developing very quickly, but it's still not fully developed. So a thing that we love to remind parents is that where adults can take feedback, hopefully, pretty immediately after things haven't gone well or we're more emotional, even we need more time to process, but kids need more. So if you can connect with your child first when they're upset or dysregulated by hugging them, patting them, listening, making eye contact, getting at their level. So it's whatever your child needs. Because like Brittany's saying, some kids, giving them a hug's not the best option. Some of them, it might be take a step back, sit down, get at eye level. But giving them a minute to help emotionally let them calm down and then provide them with your amazing wisdom and ideas of what they should do next. So this, again, very similar to the last slide, but I think it's important to know. So our right brain, which is why it still applies to adults, when we're emotional, we hang out more in our right brain. And when we are more logical, we're more in our left brain. So when we are very dysregulated, that right side of the brain is where we're spending time. And even deeper than that, that animal brain, that deepest part of our brain can get really activated, which is where fight or flight is. So it's very important to help calm the person down, the child, the teen down, before you start talking to them. Because if you start talking, and giving them that redirection or telling them what they should do to calm down, they might not be able to receive it till they're emotionally more calm. Okay, so the next one is name it to tame it. In my experience, I think this is one that can be very underestimated, but is so powerful. This is something that you can also do to model for your child or teen is naming emotions. So a lot of people who struggle with emotional dysregulation, we all do, but those who struggle with it more often or have a hard time calming themselves down, a lot of times they are not well equipped to identify their own emotions. So a way that you can model this is in the day, let's say that you're driving to work and there's a wreck or someone cuts you off or you're running late, your coffee spills. Throughout your day, noticing, okay, that really made me feel mad. I'm about to go into work. I'm going to take a deep breath and hope the rest of the day goes better. And when you get home and maybe you're stressed from work or whatever life has thrown at you, it's okay to say to your child, "Woo, mom's feeling really mad today," or "I've had a stressful day and I'm going to go for a walk. Do you want to come with me?" Or we don't want to dump on our kids, but it is very encouraged to share with them naming your emotions. That is not dumping on them. That is not having them carry that load. That's modeling for them that you are aware of your emotions and that you know ways to calm yourself down. And showing them by doing it is really the most effective way. So next, engage without a plan of action. So these are two examples of these. An example for negative self-talk is, I know that's not true, and you know that's not true, but it must be awful to feel that way. So a lot of times we go into fix-it mode of I've got to give them a step-by-step plan of what they need to do, or immediately tell them of what you did in the past. And not that those things are negative or bad ideas. They can be very helpful. But initially, a lot of times people and children just need to know that you heard them and that you agree that what they're going through is hard or difficult. And so you don't have to have a big, long plan. You can just say that you recognize it and empathize with them. You can also be more playful, like saying, "I love you." No one gets to talk to the people I love that way, in a very joking way of helping them to not take certain things so seriously or internalize it so much and normalize those thoughts because we all can have those thoughts. Storytelling. So this slide has more words of describing the process of storytelling, why it happens. I would say the summary of this is that especially younger kids, they love to tell stories, the same story over and over again. And it's not a coincidence that we also see this in the elderly community. Young children and elderly people, there's a lot of similarities in the way that they function and the way that they process. So with small children especially, if they tell you the same story about how a kid made them mad 10 times, that's not necessarily concerning. Allow them to process it that way, to share it with you. And again, use those tools we talked about. Provide comfort if they are getting upset, and empathize and identify where they did things well and remind them that what they're describing is not happening now and that you're glad that they made it through that moment. And then with teenagers, they might retell the same stories as well. With those, you can use a little more redirection of helping them see that they move past it and what they're going to learn from it. Okay, and then feelings come and go. So feelings are a part of all people and something we all experience. And it's very simple, again, concept, but reminding kids, and a lot of times, a lot of these tools you'll find, or maybe I'm just exposing myself a little bit in therapy. You'll find that when you're working with them on these, that it helps you, that it's something you need a reminder of or that you can work on as well, and that's okay. But reminding them that depression, if that's what they're experiencing, is not who they are. It's just what they're experiencing in that moment. One exercise that I love to do with kids is if they're feeling lots of emotions at once, or one really big one, is let's picture that the emotions are clouds and we're going to watch them float by. And we're down here on the ground and they can pick what they want to be. I'm a flower, I'm a house, or I'm just me. And these feelings are going to float by a lot of them will come back, and they may come back every day, but they are not who I am, and they are a separate thing from me that all people experience.
Okay, continuing in the vein, even as Katie was talking about modeling, there is a modeling behavior that you could do when you're navigating through conflict. We all know that conflict is inevitable, that we'll experience conflict even as adults, like as human, we experience conflict. And so conflict builds character, and so we like to reshape the idea of conflict being negative. And so when your children are experiencing, even parenting conflict or experiencing conflict, and seeing you, whether it's a conflict with something at work or conflicted with something going on with the spouse, children are watching how you handle your conflict and how you handle when you're feeling distress. And so while navigating through that and seeing how you're handling that, they're taking on those behaviors as well. So we encourage to take those breaks, even if it's a parent and caregiver child conflict, that you take breaks and use those breaks as a distraction, not to get rid of the conflict, but just take a pause before coming back to address it after that middle side of the brain works, after that right side of the brain where our emotions are connected and dwelling in that place, making sure we do take those breaks. It's important to use conflict, though, as a teaching opportunity. Again, we want our children to learn about empathy. We want them to learn how to express themselves and communicate verbally and non-verbally, those healthy boundaries and conflict resolution. And so there are benefits to navigating through and connecting through conflict in our lives. Okay, steps for supporting your child if mental health issues arise. We've talked throughout this presentation about talking to your child, like meeting them right where they are at eye level, helping as you're understanding them, helping them to even understand themselves, and sharing that duality there. But being able to talk to the child, making changes at home that will support their needs. And so if there is, even for I work at the high school level, and so even with high schoolers, I see a lot of times we're working on ways that both parties can compromise and get what both parties need. And so if there is a curfew, and we're not saying don't keep your curfew, but work out ways for rewarding a child. Hey, maybe you get an extra 15 minutes on your game or something like that to help make those changes at home that will support their needs. Talking to other professionals about those concerns, whether it's a pediatrician or talking to your school counselors, or even talking to teachers on ways that you as caregiver or parent can support that student while they're at home. Continuing to talk with them, keeping that communication open, even after connecting with stakeholders, which are people that are, helping to grow and develop students, and to connect with your student school counselor or a mental health agency or family doctors to talk through mental health concerns and issues that you may be having, and ways that you can also get support in navigating through those things. Mental health resources at home. So we have an online website, www.theenrichmentcenter.org. And so on our website, we have a plethora of online resources that you could use, whether it's books, we have book recommendations, we have worksheets, we have games, and we also have videos and things that are on the website, so you can check that out. We have parent resources, and if you are in the community, we do have community resources as well as resources for your student. And so if your student wants to check out and have some kind of quiet time for them to kind of sort through mental health things, we have resources also for students. We do recommend different games that you can play. There are household games such as Uno and Candyland and Jenga that we as therapists use in our sessions with students, and you can implement those games at home. Putting get to know you type questions on the Jenga pieces, and as they pull out, you all have conversations to get to know each other better. As well as Uno, you can do a different emotion would represent a different color and talk about a time you felt sad for red cards that are thrown down. And so there are a lot of household games that you probably have at home that you could use to help your student navigate and just cope and express themselves emotionally. Okay. Mental health resources at school and in our community. And so if you feel as if like the things that we talked about earlier and the resources that we've just given, if you feel like your child would benefit from having mental health therapy, we do encourage you to reach out to your school counselor for more information about how to connect with us as the Enrichment Center. As Katie mentioned, we provide those services at the school. And so if you believe that that would be appropriate for them, or if maybe outside therapy may be more suitable for your child, we on our website have a list of community resources there, as well as some recommendations for some private practice clinicians. Or you can visit the Madison City School website to access some additional community resources by visiting the parent and student section for mental health matters. There's also in need of, if there is a crisis, there's the suicide hotline and the help hotline, which is 988, and they are free and they provide services 24/7 for support, as well as getting in touch with the mental health. It's not on here, but Wellstone and Nova Center, there is a crisis bus or van that drives around. And so getting in contact with them as well to have that support.
Okay, so to wrap things up for today, because I know we talked about a lot of various different ways that you can help support a child's mental health, we want to break it down to 4 specific ways that you can support good mental health in your home. Number 1 is to normalize mental health issues by keeping the conversation open. So again, not that you need to share all of your issues with them, but not being afraid to talk about it either. So it shouldn't be we either tell everything or nothing. We can talk about appropriately the things that we are struggling with or we're experiencing. And the more that that's seen as a normal conversation in the home, the healthier that home is with their mental health. And really, the more you're able to identify if bigger things come up. Number 2, educate your child about things that can negatively affect mental health and help them set those boundaries. Kids need boundaries. They feel safer with them. Even if they push back, they really do feel safer with boundaries. So helping them to see which things are helping and are hurting their mental health, and letting them be a part of that. So even as therapists, we always, if we can, our students help create their goals, because if they feel a part of it, they're more motivated to do it. Number 3, prioritize healthy habits across the board. And then 4, being involved and spend time together. Something that I love to tell parents, caregivers, foster parents, grandparents, whoever, you are not replaceable in that child's life. The impact that you have on them, only you can do. And not to mean that they don't have other people, but a lot of times we can underestimate the simple things that we need to do because we think they're too easy. But they, especially done by someone who this child loves and trusts, are the biggest thing that you can do for them. And this is our website. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well that we keep updated. We have on our website, like Brittany was saying, lots of resources that aren't just something that we provide. If you have any questions for us about the Enrichment Center or anything with the presentation, you can always visit there to see. We have a frequently asked questions section too, if that helps. And I know Stephanie's going to pop back on here. This is the QR code link. If you could fill out this survey for them, I know they would appreciate the feedback.
Thank you so much, Katie and Dr. B. That was so much and such good stuff. And you guys did it. You finished before 1 o'clock. Great job on that. I know you could keep going about so many of these things. I love to hear and learn from you. So I hope all of you attending feel the same way, but please do. You can scan this QR code with your camera on your phone if you're on a device. If you're using your phone to listen in and you may not be able to scan it, I will follow up this session with an email that has a link to this survey. And really, we want to know how you felt about today and if you were able to learn some valuable tools. But we also want to learn from you what you might want to know more about in the future. So if we can offer more virtual sessions, that would be helpful to you. Or if we can offer more in-person sessions, maybe on specific topics like anxiety or helping kids cope with anger or changes in the home or technology and mental health. So whatever interests you, please let us know. Give us your feedback. We're here to support you. Again, thank you so much to our presenters and to the Enrichment Center. I want to give them a big shout out. Allison Spratley is their executive director, and she's been behind the scenes running the show on this webinar today. But they are great partners in our school system, as is our Madison City PTA. So please let us know if you have any questions at all on this exit survey, or when I send out my email, you'll have my email address where you can contact me for more questions. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. I hope you have a tool or strategy that you can take with you. And thank you again for joining us and learning more about how to support the mental health of our youth. So thank you. Have a great day.